Welcome, everybody. We're going to have episode 3. This is on the series of Constantine and the rise of Paul. And it's the topic of this slide is, or this episode is, did Pope Silvester ever agree to the Nicene decisions? So there's multiple decisions. There was the decision that Jesus would be deemed God the Son, and alongside God the Father. We call this bideity. There was no Trinity yet, just so you know, no decision on the Trinity. That didn't come until 381 at the Council of Constantinople. Second major decision was that the resurrection of Jesus would not be celebrated anymore in conjunction with the Jewish people. That it would be moved from the Passover time period to a time that would coincide exactly with the equinox. This is a period, a date that's set in relationship to the sun and equinox. Constantine does not explain to anybody why he wants that, but we'll show you eventually why he wants that. We won't deal with that at this time. Anyway, so please enjoy. I hope you'll find this interesting. Okay, and just so you know, if you want to read this whole article in full, this is at our website, our archive website called JewsWordsOnly.github, GITHUB.io, in an article called Constantine's Damage to Christianity. All right, so in a topic called Constantine Cut Off Leadership from the Roman Bishop, I wrote, and I'm going to just read it. Constantine set Nicea, which is in Turkey, far away from Rome, thereby preventing the infirm Pope of Rome, Silvester, from attending. Quote, Silvester could not come in person by reason of his great age. Alban Butler, The Lives of the Fathers, Martyrs, and Other Principal Saints. J. Duffy, 1866, Volume 2, 224. If you click that button, you'll be able to read it yourself. What leadership could Silvester have provided? Silvester was Pope from 314 AD to 335 AD. Yet he failed to ever sign the Articles of Nicea decreed in 325 AD. This is admitted by the Catholic Encyclopedia, 1912, Volume 14 at 371. And just so you know, it'll be in column 1. You can go to this link and double check it yourself. The encyclopedia carefully obscures this embarrassing fact by placing it among some droll observations. It still reads clear enough. Quote, still, it is not certain whether Constantine had arranged beforehand with Silvester the actual convening of the council, nor whether there was an express papal confirmation of the decrees beyond the signatures of the papal legatees. Okay, so read between the lines. Is number 1, Silvester did not consent to this because there's no evidence he actually agreed. It could be convened hundreds or close to hundreds and hundreds of miles away from where he lives, so that he could not attend. The guy who's in charge of Christianity as far as most people thought at the time. Okay, number 2, it's not certain whether there was an express papal confirmation of the decrees, which means there is no signature of Silvester on any of the decrees at Nicea. So we have proof that neither of those two things happened because there's no evidence that there was any consent by Silvester at any point, and in fact his signature never appears on any of the Nicene Creed, which is the only way to validate something. Legates do not actually validate something of this significance, changing Jesus into God. Believe me, I'm sure that would have been important. But on the other hand, he completely took over the church. And what he did in part of the Council of Nicea and all these things is he put everyone on as priests, the leadership. So the reward of going along with it, it's always the carrot and the stick too. You know, if you don't come my way, you're going to be killed. If you come my way, you got a carrot. You got some cash. You're going to make money as a priest. And they didn't know it, but they would be called fathers. I don't think they knew it initially, because that's the Mithraic label they would be given, so that it would just completely conform to the Mithraic religion we've just seen. Anyway, so let's just read how I reviewed this at the time I wrote this. This is many years ago, so I'm trying to remember. Hence, you must read between the lines, as the Roman Catholic Church is founded upon Constantine's changes. And in fact, I want to make a point here. The Roman Catholic Church did not exist before this severance. The fact that Constantine didn't sign it is the severance of the true Roman Catholic Church from everything that follows. Everything from that follows is invalid and illegal. Because again, the two legates who were there were coerced into it, as everybody else was at Nicea. And then they had to all come back and pretend, oh, well, we agreed, yeah, we're going to be sent off to the hinterlands if we don't agree. So it's a complete fraud. They probably went there voluntarily, those who did, and by the way, it was a small percentage of the bishops of the world at the time. And those who did, I'm sure, regretted it because they had to participate in this whole thing. It was a travesty of enormous proportions. Not just what was going on there, but the severance of the leadership of the church being changed. They had to submit by law, Roman law. Pontifex Maximus is the actual legal title of Constantine. He had the right to do whatever he wanted. But you know what? Sometimes you don't, as a leader, exert your rights. Marcus Aurelius would never have done this to the Roman Catholics. He would have let them continue to worship and have whatever beliefs they wanted. They could fight forever about is Jesus God or is he indwelled by God? Okay, huge difference. Huge difference between whether he was God before birth and always was God, or is he indwelled by God like he said. And the Logos, which is the Word became flesh. He said, the Logos is not mine. It's not me. It's not me. I'm not the Logos. The Logos is dwelling in me. That would have stayed the doctrine of the church because that's coming from whom? Jesus' words, not a papal legate signing on to a coerced decree along with a lot of other frightened men who are cowards, to be honest with you, by and large. They never understood they were going to be killed or die, be sent off to a barbarian land if they didn't go along with this until they got there. All right. Anyway, but this admits, as the other histories directly relate, that there is no evidence that Silvester agreed to Nicea as the location of the council, which is unlikely he would do so because the location of Nicea prevented his attendance at his elderly state. And B, other than the two legates who attended on his behalf whom Constantine could intimidate, Pope Silvester never signs the Articles of Nicea. The Roman Catholic Church that arose from Nicea, ironically, thus has no true papal authority for its changes. So I want to put this to everybody. Every pope since then is in an unlawful system, meaning it was never lawfully set up because Nicea broke all doctrine from the original church to a completely heretical doctrine. I'm just going to put it right there. An idolatry doctrine, which could never be endorsed by Jesus Christ, ever. He would never put his face in front of God the Father. And I'll never forget, it was 2019. Yeah, I forget what the date is exactly. I'm sitting in a Protestant church. The leader, his name is Pastor Mike. He says, Yahweh was the God of the Old Testament. And I'm looking up at the song thing behind there, and it says Jesus was by a group, Maranatha. Jesus Christ, our God. And I'm just thinking to myself, holy moly, Yahweh is dead and gone. That's what he just told me. And he was the God of the Old Testament, but now we have a new God. We have a new God. My goodness, it struck me. We are doomed. Protestantism is just a child of the Roman Catholic Church, which was cut from its roots, severed from Christ, and attached to Constantine and his pagan ideology. That's where we are today. And that's why Paul had to be brought in, because he's the only one who would support any kind of idea that you could sever off and treat Yahweh as something of the past, dead and gone. In fact, that's what it's taught by Paul. He says the husband has died so that the wife can now marry another god, another husband. And in the epistle to the Hebrews, what does it say? You can not have a New Testament unless the testator, because a testament means the testator has to die for you to get the testament benefits. So the testator must remain dead. And the only person he could be talking about is Yahweh. So when Pastor Mike said Yahweh was the God of the Old Testament, I actually have the sermon. I downloaded an audio that I should get pull it up one of these days. That means that God is dead. Dead. He lives in Sheol, according to the Marcionites. If you're a Marcionite, you would say, well, I wouldn't mean he's really dead. He's just going to dwell in Sheol forever with his people, Israel. But the rest of us are all going to live in the Elysian fields of happiness and charm and wonderful, the heaven, the New Jerusalem. But the Jews don't get it, and neither does Yahweh. He's dead and gone. He's got to stay with them in their Sheol. That's the only modification which ever was made to Paul's doctrines to keep it from being as horrific as it was. So Marcion was actually a tempering of the radicalism of how radical Paul and Barnabas were, in how dead and gone Yahweh was. But now I realize that, when I heard that pastor say that, I thought, oh my, we've really gone too far. We have killed off Yahweh. We could actually speak about him in the past tense. Yahweh was the God of the Old Testament. His words exactly. Anyway, let's keep reading. The Roman Catholic Church that arose from Nicea, ironically thus, has no true papal authority. For its changes, any supreme authority it supposedly had was by the claimed unbroken chain from Peter was destroyed. However, that chain was severed in 325 AD by Constantine and his mandate of the Nicene Creed with its material change in our faith. The Roman Pope did not agree to any of these changes. That is a fact that will never, ever change because it's right in the Catholic Encyclopedia. The Nicene Creed said Jesus was God, the Son, alongside God, the Father, and was the same being, true God from true God, yet holy, had a distinct mind and consciousness. This made Jesus exactly into the God, like the God of the Son, Sol Invictus, the Son of the God Horus. Jesus, by contrast, said the only true God is the Father. He said this in John 17:3. But that the Father indwelled in Jesus, John 14, verse 10, giving Jesus divinity, but not deity. Based upon Jesus' words and many statements in the epistles and Acts, the pre-Nicea church believed Jesus was a man indwelled by the Father who alone, the Father alone is God. But there was a possible misconstruing of Jesus' words if you did not follow one of Jesus' directions, and thus could be exploited by a pagan ruler like Constantine. Jesus said, those who pay attention will know whether it is I who speak or my Father who is speaking through me. So who is the voice speaking when Jesus said, before Abraham I am? Well, it's obvious, everyone. The Father dwelling in Jesus. Why? Because the Father is I am, the only true God, Jesus said in John 17:3. Hence the words I am are the Father speaking through Jesus directly. The pre-Nicea church knew this and always had Jesus as Son of God, a man indwelled by the Father, but had the Father always as the only true God. Second, Nicea, by means of a letter of Constantine, ordered Christ's resurrection would now be celebrated no longer at Passover time. Did you know that? That's the other decree he made. The guy was unbelievable. And it's no coincidence. Well, let's read here. Instead, it only would be observed at a seemingly arbitrary date. See, nobody knew why he was doing this, why he was moving the date. That Constantine only explained to the crowd was tied to the spring equinox. So they don't know why is that important? Why are we moving it from, what coincides with Passover? But this sun-determined date happened to be the date to worship Isis. Oh, where her Saxon name of Eostre now is forever associated with Jesus' resurrection. Only this guy knew that. The bishops there didn't know that it would be one day in the future. This day of we've moved Passover. No, we've gotten rid of Passover technically. And we're now going to be worshiping on the day to worship Easter, the goddess Easter, or Osiris here in Rome. Oh my gosh. Would we do this? Would we knowingly have consented to this fraud upon us by this guy we hardly know, this Constantine? What we now call Easter. And I laugh when people, they have whole seminars. Oh no, that's just, yes. It's just like the day Thursday, the god of Thor. We don't believe. We call it Thursday. It doesn't mean we believe in the god Thor. You know what though? We don't treat Thursday every Thursday as a worship day to consider worshiping our Lord Jesus, and he deserves worship as a Messiah. He deserves worship as the Son of God. You were able to worship even a king in the Bible. Did you know that? It says in 1 Chronicles they worship David as king. You give that person obeisance and honor and all kinds of things. But we would never associate the worship of God, the worship of the Messiah, with a goddess of evil, a goddess who was pagan, A date that was picked solely to show her honor and show her dignity. And to put our Lord Jesus under that name is just a crime against all crime. We need to put back the Passover as the date we do it. Christians, we need to stop worshiping on Easter. We need to worship on Passover and get rid of that horrible, horrible name, Easter. It used to actually be in the Old Testament, the original Testament, original covenant, which you couldn't even utter the name of a pagan god off your lips, let alone worship on that same day that was the worship day for that evil queen of heaven. That's who she was, by the way. So, it's just a matter of technicality. God meant you shouldn't be talking about these people as real beings. Okay, so we don't believe Easter is really a real being. I got it. But you know what? I hesitate, but I have to say it because I'm trying to get you to stop using this word and stop getting us worshiping on a day like that. It's just horrific. And there's no excuse for it. Don't make any more excuses for using a pagan term for the very day that you're going to honor Jesus Christ and his resurrection. Show some guts and kahunas. That's what we need to do, but we have none. We have none. We're just like the same cowards who went to Nicea and allowed some pagan ruler to tell us what to believe about Jesus Christ, and we went right along with it. Boom, we're done. But it also reflects Constantine's true objectives in the moving of the date away from the Sunday after Passover, when Christ's resurrection was always previously remembered. See our article on the Easter error. Why did Constantine's letter issued at Nicea truly pick this equinox date to celebrate Jesus' resurrection? Because the sun's action in the spring equinox is known in Constantine's pagan religion as the day where the death of winter reverses, and the day and every day thereafter is the strengthening of the sun, seen as a resurrection of the sun god Sol Invictus from the death of winter. This is in an article entitled Easter by Reverend George Lemon in English Etymology in 1783. Do we know that? Did we know that we were picking it because the God of the sun is the one who resurrects on equinox, not the God of the Bible, not the Jesus of the Bible? No, that's not what he really was thinking. What is Constantine thinking about, ladies and gentlemen? What was he hoping we would see it as? What was his Mithras religion believing? It was that the God of the sun resurrects on the equinox, not that Jesus resurrects. It's so transparent that you have to be a fool to not see this stuff. But yet we're told that's just a coincidence, and it was just to make it easier for us to just worship, and and blah 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 blah. Hence, Nicea gave us two pagan concepts: Jesus was God, the Son, equal to God the Father, with one essence with the Father, who also was God. And both are of different minds and consciousnesses, which is what? Self-evident polytheism. Sorry, you can't get around it. You have a belief there's two gods in one brain. No, not even in one brain. You believe there are two consciousnesses, separate and independent of each other, who operate in one Godhead, but they are two separate beings in one synthetic being, a being that synthesizes them in a mental state. Right? So no matter how much we try to deny it, it is polytheism. It's just, there's no way to get around that. And Jesus' resurrection was no longer celebrated on the Sunday after Passover, but on the date tied to the solar equinox that links the goddess Oestre, or Isis, the mother of Sol Invictus, and her son Saul, S-O-L, son, who rises from the dead at equinox. All right, so I think that covers everything I needed to say about why the Roman Catholic Church is invalid, why the Nicene Creed is invalid, why the change to Easter as our worship day for the resurrection of Jesus Christ is invalid. We have been given a false bill of goods. We need to rectify that. I don't think there's any question about it. It's not an option. It's not an option, Catholic Church. It's not an option, Protestant Church. You have to go back to the original church's worship day, which was the 14th of Nisan for Passover, just so we know, and the Jews know what that date is. And so if you just switch over to our buddies at the Jewish yeshiva and say, can you help us get back on track? We want to go back to honoring the Christ's resurrection on Passover, or in conjunction with that date, because we picked the day that would coincide with the date of his resurrection. Not, I think his being killed is on the 14th of Nisan, so you have to pick a different date for that resurrection date. But anyway, so that's how we did it in the old days. Okay, well, God bless everybody. Hope this helps. Ciao. Bye.